it's definitely like a work that feels very me at this moment in time and feels like urgent, like I feel the need to share it.
Hi all, it's Silas Ram, AsianCultureVulture.com. How are you doing? Thanks for joining me. We're talking to the composer-dancer Mythili Prakash about her show She's Auspicious. It's coming to the UK for the first time at the new venue of Sadler's Wells East. Mythili Prakash is based in LA and grew up in the US. She's a bharatanatyam icon, or becoming one. Let's go and find out more.
She's Auspicious. I mean, it was created primarily during the pandemic. So for me, it was a huge period of reflection. I had time to sit and think about, for me particularly as a Bharatanatyam dancer, to think about the history of my form, which I've grown up, like Bharatanatyam has been in my life literally since the day I was born because my mom's a dancer.
Right.
So that I grew up in that home environment. But we're not generally taught to think about the history of the form, which is quite complex. It's a history of erasure of voices, of hereditary dancers, of casteism, of appropriation, and so I think for me being in the US and really thinking a lot more about the history of the US also and our history of racism, all of it just sort of prompted this reflection. And for me, dance is my language. It's like how I think of society, of politics, of spirituality, of personal relationships, like everything gets filtered through dance. So
Okay.
suddenly the form itself was under question for me in many ways. And for me, mythology is huge because, of course, like since I was a baby, I've been in love with the music and the dance, of Bharatanatyam, but it's really the storytelling that kind of brings all of that alive. And so we dance through these characters that we portray. And so this idea of the goddess, Devi, all of her various forms and all of the mythology around her is something I grew up through the dance. On one hand, and then also through my grandparents. My grandma's a huge Devi Bhakta, so we'd always be hearing these stories, chanting these prayers, and like kind of imbibing these qualities of like, goddesshood.
When people are in a certain space, say the spiritual space, and they're looking at the goddess Devi and they're worshipping her and they're believing her to be a powerful influence on their own lives, and then
Mhm.
in their daily practice, they can't seem to match the two, or it seems strange to me. I don't know whether it seems strange to other people, but I think, is that what you're trying to? I mean, expose is probably not quite the right word, but it kind of reflect or highlight.
Yes, I think reflect is a great word, and I think it is this sense of compartmentalizing, right? Like we are so easily able to say, "Oh, this works then," and this, and sometimes that compartmentalization is necessary, but it's also so dangerous, right? Because it allows a lot of things to fall through the cracks. And I think for me in this piece, there's one main story, which is the creation of the goddess, the one where the male gods create Durga out of their energies and their fire, because and it's in response to the demon Mahisha, who says he doesn't want to be destroyed by man. And so their response is to create a woman. We have a pantheon with so many female goddesses already. So why weren't one of them like recruited to be the warrior goddess? Why was it that the male gods had to create one out of their fire, their energy with their weapons?
Yeah.
And like if that was just an isolated story that felt like, okay, it's just a story, then I'd leave it. But I feel like there's so much in there that feels relevant,
Yeah.
to society and agency and
And
yeah.
so, in the Student Spirit, does it have a kind of narrative around that? Would it be fair to say that?
Yeah. I think that like if there's one story to know, I would say like just the awareness of that idea of creation of the goddess is something that sort of forms a red tape through the piece, and it's not in a very direct way. Sometimes there's references to like AI or
Right,
like it's
okay.
just it is.
That's quite
I
good.
mean,
Yeah.
it's this sense of like who's dictating the creation, who is
Uh,
dictating like what she looks like, what she behaves like, what decisions she makes, and who, yeah, I think that's that story sort of informs. I don't think it actually is literally played out, but it informs a lot of the piece. And there's a creator and there's the goddess and these characters. There is sort of a male um figure, sort of, that kind of
But
is
you wanted an all-female cast for what, was that a very conscious thing or?
well, at first the piece started off as a solo. It was just me in my room, like in 2021. And then I involved three musicians who were women. For me, a female percussionist was really important too, because like they have their own stories. It is such a like male
Right.
forward
Yeah.
form, you know? And
Yeah.
so there is something to me really special about seeing like a woman playing the mridangam or playing the kanjira. And it would just be interesting to hear the stories they had of like how they were expected to dress or how they were expected to behave. This idea of blurring lines has been important to me like throughout my life. And so
Okay.
this like the idea that musicians sit on the side and
Yeah.
they're heard but not seen is something that I've started to question a lot. Traditionally, the musicians sit on the side and they play music. And for me, like I'm hugely influenced by Akram Khan, who was one of my mentors. And there was a piece of his called Until the Lions where the musicians were all around and very integrated into the piece. And when I saw that, I was just like, oh my God, like, why don't we do that? And so we just tried bringing in four dancers who actually, they're students in my mom's school, Shakti. I teach them a lot. They're sort of like, we've grown together. They've been in a lot of my other choreographies. So we brought them into this piece. And so having them sing, having them play rhythms, having just like that collective energy, I think it feels, like yeah, there's something that just feels very, I don't know, it's just it's right. And when things
Yeah, it
start
could
to
be right. Yeah,
unravel,
sure, sure.
yeah, and everybody just brings their own stories. Like, I mean, it's kind of sad when you think about it, but everybody has so
Oh
many
no.
stories, you
Yeah.
know?
So how
And
does it feel to bring it to the UK?
it is really special because She's Auspicious. Yeah, it's definitely like a work that feels very me at this moment in time and feels like urgent, like I feel the need to share it. Um, and it feels special that it's like in the opening season, of Sadler's East, opening in a new
Yeah,
area, like kind of a new, like it feels like a new energy that
definitely.
and so I'm excited, of course, nervous, like as like one would be, but the excitement is there. And the thing that's interesting about this piece is like it has changed so much and it keeps changing. Like even though, yeah, we did do a tour of the US last year, it's just like I love that you come back to it and you can never do it the same way that you've done something, done it in the past, because it is connected to like how you feel about society, how you feel about the present moment. So it's kind of like it always has to keep readapting itself.
Tell us how you got into bharatanatyam because obviously you're born and grew up in the US, and uh,
Yeah.
obviously your family are a big influence. But in a practical way, how did you become a professional?
I mean, I like for me, dance was, I literally, there's been no point in time where it hasn't been a part of my life because my mom is a dancer. She was touring, like even when she gave birth to me, she, got me out and then like left me with my grandparents and went on tour. So I've like always grown up in a home. We've had musicians, rehearsals, like a dance school. My parents basically started a dance school. So there was no really, it was never a choice for me. And I say that in a positive way because I was in love with it from the start. It was never like something forced upon me.
What would you say somebody who's what is that? I'm sure you get this question in the US.
Yeah.
What is bharatanatyam?
It is really difficult to explain. There's like a really richness and a depth to it. And I think the misconception is that audiences have to go in and understand everything they're seeing. And they don't carry that baggage when they go see contemporary. They're okay to just go in and experience. And I think if they can go in with that same mindset, there's something that is so rich and embodied and has been present like over time, and that carries weight. So there you will be moved in some way. Like saying what that is
No,
impossible,
no,
but
I think that that is essentially it, that you will have uh, an experience and you will be part of the performance in some ways, and that it also hopefully it will kind of shift your, even at a subconscious level, make you think maybe
yeah,
slightly differently about these real world issues. That's
yeah,
about
and
that depends
totally,
on the person, I guess, in the end.
yeah. There's also like this word that we use in Indian classical art called rasa,
Right.
which is, it literally translates to flavor, but like that's the purpose of art, is to like come up with rasa. And it's not the performer's job to provide the rasa. It's a collaboration between the performer and the audience member, the viewer. And I think that's really beautiful. That's like so built into the nature of our performing arts. When you go see an installation, the installation doesn't tell you like, okay, this is what you have to get. Like you participate in the experience of the installation. And so I think the more we can encourage audiences to come look at art, even Indian classical art, especially Indian classical art that way, is to just like participate, like meet, it's a meeting point, right? It's not like this thing where we're performing for you and you're like seeing what you can get. But if really we can all be present,
Yeah.
like that's the rasa, or that's the experience, that's the takeaway.
Great. Thank you so much for making the time, and I look
Thank you.
forward
Nice to meet you. Yes, and look forward to having you at She's Auspicious.
to